All right, good morning, afternoon, evening, whenever the hell you're watching this. TGT Media is an entertainment industry interview podcast where I kill a bird. Hang on a second. Quit it. Anyhow, it's an entertainment industry interview podcast where we interview the creative people in the entertainment industry. And of course, I'm your host, Kurt Sass. So we are finishing off Author Month, even though it's a week later, but that's all good. We are finishing off Author Month with one of my favorite people of all time, because we've had him on the show many times, as well as live at conventions, C2E2 and all that stuff. We are, of course, joined by the ever verbose, ever entertaining, ever creative Dirk Manning.
Oh, here. Is that better?
No, because you're tracked up.
Even perfect. You do the whole show like this.
Exactly. There we go. That's better. We're joined by Dirk Manning, creator, author extraordinaire of the popular column after 12 plus years of Right or Wrong. How are you doing today, Dirk?
I'm very well, thank you. I feel I had to have, the real Dirk Manning behind me because, as we were talking about before we got started, when we're done, I'm hitting the road to go to a signing. So I'm kind of like incognito right now, or reverse cognito. It's like this is my driving gear. I don't drive to signings in a suit. Being on the road for like hours and hours, you get there, you're all crusty and disgusting. So this is Saturday morning Dirk Manning.
With the fabulous Shirley Temples there, because non-alcoholic drinks in the morning are a good thing. Love it. So, I've always loved having you on the show because you always bring that extra value to our conversation, because you're always willing to go in depth as to what you do. And of course, the most interesting aspect of you here is you have a sold out book, Right or Wrong. You've been writing this book pretty much in column format for Newsarama for almost 10 years. Or over 10 years now.
It's been a while.
It's been a long time.
I think actually I've been writing, for 12 years. I think the column started in 2006. So 7, 8, whatever year it is, subtract that 2006 from that, and that's how long it's been.
It's been a while. Either way.
It's been a while.
From the early days of the internets and all that stuff. But
yeah.
You show this book as almost your guideline as to how you went through the industry to get to where you are. And obviously that's always expanding. But why do you want to open up this holy grail of information to the masses?
It's something a lot of people ask, because with Right or Wrong, again, cheap. Here, the book's real. Sorry, I'll never get sick of showing off the book. What it is, when I really knew in my heart of hearts that I want to write comics. I want to write comics more than anything else in the world. And this, back in the early 2000s, I didn't know where to start. I didn't know what to do, There was no real resources out there. There are books out there like Understanding Comics, and I'll even go way back to like Coming Alone, I think, talked about things a little bit, kind of the emergence of the internet. The Scott McCloud stuff, the Eisner stuff. Alan Moore even has a book on script writing. There's a lot of books out there about how to write a comic. There are no books out there about how to create comics. And that was a real struggle for me because I didn't know what to do. I knew there were people out there that wanted to create comics. I knew people wanted to draw them and, that I could work with. I knew there were artists out there, but I really didn't know how to find them. And I vowed, I said, someday if I get the opportunity to start creating comics and really make a go with this, I'm going to let everybody know. And people are always kind of, I'm going to tell them, when I started Right or Wrong, I promised myself, I said, I'm always going to be honest. It's going to be brutally honest. The things I do right, I'm going to talk about it. The things I do wrong, I'm going to talk about it. And what ended up, happening was, this long-going, evolving column over at Newsarama, where when I started Right or Wrong, I wasn't with Image yet. I was still just, self-publishing comics online, even before digital comics were really a big thing. And, kind of like what you were saying, people ask me, why would you open the floodgates? Why would you try to, help the competition, quote unquote? And you know what? To me, it's really not a competition in the sense that there's only one Dirk Manning. That's him. There's only one me. So there is no other Dirk Manning. Rather, if in writing Right or Wrong, putting together as a book, as you mentioned, it's sold out through Diamond. Now the only way to get it's through Amazon.com or hunt me down at a show. That poor bird. But I'm not endorsing the bird hitting. No, but
you're endorsing the book.
I'm endorsing the book, right? The bird is trying to get in on the conversation. No, but it's not really about creating competition. It's about helping other people create comics. And I mean, honestly, that gives me more good comics to read. I'm okay with that. Make your books, man. So many people are so funny about it. I talk about very early in the book the famous Mark Waid quote about how getting into comics is like breaking out of prison. Once someone finds a way into the industry, they seal the way shut so no one else can get in that way. And to me, we're especially at a point now where with print on demand, with the internet, with social media, there's so many ways to meet other people to help you as a writer create comics that I put it all together. 216 pages. This is everything I could tell anybody ever about how to create comics, not just write them. We talk about scripts a little bit. We talk about, the technical aspect, but that's kind of like the theory of comic creating. Right or wrong is about the practice of it. How do you network with artists? How do you maximize your relationships with them? How do you print the books? How do you distribute, all that stuff. So yeah, there's no, it's just about helping people out, man. I've been very fortunate. I've been doing this for 12 years. I'm not the biggest name in the industry, but I'm creating comics. I have several books out. I have several more books coming out. I want to help other people get that chance. I mean, that's it.
Which is great because, that this type of information I see, maybe not necessarily this industry per se, but I see other people similar into my aspect of the podcasting news aspect where you would be considered a consultant. Your knowledge, your information would be like $300, $400, $500 an hour type deal. And
what?
Yeah, seriously.
This interview thing. Forget the book. Just contact me directly.
But it's that type of premium, information that people consider to be gold. And the fact that you have taken the time, dedication, passion, and putting it into a book that is very easy to read, very knowledgeable, great stories in it as well. And, it gets the point across. And that's, the fact that you're selling it for however many dollars you're selling it for.
It's like, $15 roughly on Amazon. $16.99 on Amazon. So,
which is amazing. That information is gold. And I'm glad that you finally put it all together.
Thank you. Yeah. I mean, it's, like I said, there's nothing else like this out there. I'm not a guy who went and did an internship at Marvel or knew a guy at DC or something like that. I mean, I still don't. I'm relatively antisocial. I just kind of, for better or for worse, it's like the typical writer. I write. I stay in an office and I write. It was years before I finally even started going to like the bar con after conventions and stuff like that. I would just go back to my hotel room, or I would just go hang out with one or two friends of mine and things like that. I'm truly grassroots. I started publishing Nightmare World online digitally back in 2002, and really just pulled and just made my way through. And I made a lot of mistakes along the way, and I talk about that. And I did a lot of things right, and I talk about that. There is no one way to do this. But I can at least, as you said, talk about my story, consult people. In the Right or Wrong book, it's called Right or Wrong, A Writer's Guide to Creating Comics. I've just told everybody in 216 pages everything I could possibly tell you about wanting to create comics to creating comics, how to talk to artists, how to approach artists, where to find them. Because again, I just want to see more people have this opportunity, man, to make comics. I'm not trying to make thousands and millions of dollars off of this. I did the column online for free for however many years at Newsarama. The column's going to be coming back. I'm already planning the second book out. It took a year to really put this first one together, but I want to bring the column back monthly and then start working on the second book, which is going to be about, now that you're creating comics, what's the next step? The convention circuit and talking to editors, and if you want to go from there. But this whole first book is really just about, helping people out, and it's, $16 or something like that on Amazon. If you have Amazon Prime, you get free shipping.
Nice.
Well,
We'll talk about this then, because everyone has great ideas. Everyone has the ability to write stories. Everyone can write a script. Or, well, I shouldn't say everyone, but most people have the notion that I have these great ideas. I want to put things together. I have a friend that's an artist here. A lot of people seem to be going to the online aspect, the webcomic style and all that other stuff here. What is it about, say, working with another person that you can really benefit your own writing style?
I talk about this a lot in the book about how I think one of the biggest mistakes that beginning writers make is when they first get to work with an artist. It's such a cool thing and it's so exciting. It's like, someone's going to draw my stuff, that they, whether they mean to or not, treat the artists kind of like their drawing hand. And I talk about this at length in the book. Artists are fellow professionals. They're people that want to create comics as well, and they do the visual aspect. As a writer, I do the narrative, more or less. I drive the narrative, and then they illustrate it and contribute to the narrative visually. But they're fellow professionals as well, and as a result, you really have to trust their instincts as an artist. There have been times where an artist has contributed something and I said, hey, what if we do it this way? But there's a lot more times where I write something a certain way and then the artist will present it visually in a way that's a lot more dynamic and a lot better. I don't think visually as well as most artists do. I just don't. There's a joke for a long time. It's like I could write scripts of just talking heads, and just go. But it really challenges you to think about how to best present the narrative in a way that not only is visually dynamic, but also a way that specifically matches the style of the artist. I'll do another cheap plug. I just worked with Riley Roscoe on Stella Morta's number one. Riley was on my bucket list, man. It's like, I always hoped that someday I'd be good enough to work with Riley. And when he contacted me about the Dias de la Mortis anthology he's doing, I was just like, oh, yes. But I had never worked with Riley before. So the first thing I did with Riley was I asked him, I said, I'm very familiar with his work. Cowboy Ninja Viking, Proof, Bedlam, all these books he's done. But the first thing I asked him was, I said, well, what do you want to draw? And he told me, he said, he gave me this list of ideas and stuff like that. And what we ended up doing for his story is I wrote he talked about really the emotional resonance that he wanted to have in a story. Dias de la Mortis is all about stories that take place in Mexico during the day or center on the Day of the Dead. And people may find this kind of odd, but I'm going to do a close-up of this cover. I saw this picture. I track the face there. I saw this picture, and it struck me because these were, he did the covers first. Yeah, sorry. Hi. Diggin', you talk to that guy. That guy's fine. I saw this cover, and this mariachi player and stuff like that, and kind of looking out kind of wistfully and kind of happy, and the juxtaposition of his face painted like a skull, and it just really struck me in the heart. And the idea for the story came together, which is about the story's called De Vas Angel Mio, and it's about a mariachi player who is performing during the Day of the Dead festivities, and he meets a woman who reminds him of his lost love. And what I wanted to do with Riley was really tell an emotional story. He does this real bombastic stuff, and he does gritty, and he does violent and creepy really well. But I don't know, when I see his work, and especially when I saw this painting he did for what became the cover number one, I saw something very romantic and very passionate. So that pushed me to tell a story that was very romantic and very passionate, which people that have read Nightmare World and Tales of Mystery and I mean, obviously love stories about death know that I'm that's something that interests me a lot anyway. So to get to tell this very romantic, almost gothic, ethereal story, and then also tell that story in a way that he could illustrate it well, and which he could illustrate anything well, but play to his strengths. That's the benefit of working with different artists or one artist over time, playing to their strengths, helping them bring the story forward and making that synergy where the sum, the whole is greater than the parts individually.
Definitely. You've worked with a lot of people in general. Nightmare World, obviously, you have some amazing artists working there. You've done, of course, the Right or Wrong book. You've done Tales of Mystery. Obviously, that's still going strong. Loving that as well, too. But have you ever stopped and thought, maybe I'd like to try my hand as an artist sometime? Maybe I'd like to be on the different side of the spectrum, so to speak.
No. No. In Nightmare World Volume 3, we did a story called In the Meantime. And that story is 4 2-page stories. And each 2-page story is illustrated by a different artist. And for about 5 minutes, I thought about illustrating one of those 2-page ones myself. I have what they call functional drawing. If I draw it, you can kind of tell what it is. And I thought, 2 pages, I could do that. I was thinking about doing the 2-page Marrow story myself because it's a little kid in a boat, and you see the Marrow kind of in the water creeping around and stuff. And I thought, I could maybe pull that off. That might, kind of stroking my scarfed chin, like I could maybe pull that off. But then, the other part kicked in, which is like, why would I? I have all these phenomenal artists I'm working with. It'd just be a vanity thing for me. It's not about, me getting my rocks up and look, I drew a story. I can't draw very well. Why would I do it? Instead I had, Len O'Grady, redraw that because he did the original Marrow story. The original online version, Brent Engstrom, this amazing illustrator, he did the original version. So, no, it would just really be a vanity thing. It'd be kind of like that thing where you have movie stars that want to be rock singers, so they sing their own songs, like the Bruce Willis thing, the Eddie Murphy thing, the Jim Carrey thing. You get all these movie stars that want to be musicians, so they sing their own song on a soundtrack or in the movie. You play to your strengths. And comic books are really about everyone putting their best foot forward. My best foot forward is writing, not illustrating. So, it'd be kind of, I don't know if it'd be fun, really. No, I would much rather let people that are good at that do that. And I'll handle the writing and they can handle the art.
With the amount of content you have for the Right or Wrong book, 216 pages is a lot of content. However, what challenges have you had to personally face when you're putting that book together?
I waited a long time to put the book together. It was at least 5 years of the column running at Newsarama before I put the book together, because what I really wanted to do is if people go to Amazon, they find me a show, they pick up this book. Okay. I want this to be everything that I could possibly tell anybody about creating comics. I want it to be like the Bible. This is your one-stop shop. This is everything right here. This is it. This is everything I could ever tell you. So, that was probably the biggest thing I was worried about up front, was making it a definitive resource. And it got to the point, I kind of took a little bit of a hiatus from the column online because I realized, I'm like, hey, I can, I've got enough. I can put the book together. So I did that. And then, of course, my next fear was, well, gosh, I wrote some of these columns, back in 2006, 2007. Are they going to hold up? So it's like, here we go, and really to my surprise, for the most part, they did. Obviously, like I said earlier, when I started the column, I was not yet working with Image. I wasn't working with Shadowline and Jim Valentino at all. I wasn't doing a lot of that stuff. I wasn't working with any publishers to speak of. So what I did was going back through those early columns, I was able to really kind of shine them up a little bit, I guess, and really speak from a point of, okay, here I am now, I'm working with Shadowline, working with Image, I've written short films, I've done all this stuff, but also keeping the spirit and the through line of the original series of telling that story about, okay, starting with nothing. I tell this story all the time, and I'm sure people that have listened to me talk more than once are sick of this, but when I started, I didn't even have an internet connection at home. When I started, in 2002, started writing comics, there were no smartphones. I had a rotary phone, internet was dial-up. I would go to the local library or go to my parents' house, who didn't live too far away where I was living at the time, and go use their internet. So now, the question was, well, do you talk about that stuff? Is that relevant anymore? Well, sure it is. Not everyone has broadband, for example. Not everyone, has these fancy phones and webcams and cool T-shirts, apparently, for some. But I don't know. My cameraman did that. That wasn't. I don't know. But the biggest challenge was then going through and really, over the stretch of so many years, sometimes certain themes would kind of represent themselves over and over again. So what I did is I took about the first 50 columns, give or take, actually probably 40 columns, and really kind of I combined two columns into one chapter. I added some new columns or chapters to the book that were exclusive to this collection. And again, just really want to make a definitive resource of something that anyone that knows they know I can write comics. I can do this, but I don't know where the artists are. I don't know how to get started. Here. Spend less with shipping. Spend $20. Spend less than a $20 bill on yourself. This is it. This can tell you everything you need to know. That was just a challenge, and I really succeeded. It was really I'm really happy with it. I took a lot of time. I took a year to put this book together and really shine it up and make sure that this is a definitive resource. And like I said, another year or two, I'll probably begin working on, at least, if not have out, the next book, which is about, okay, now that you're creating comics, what's the next step? What do you do next?
One thing that's been happening lately, and this is happening a lot more frequently, especially now that I'm back at university, I'm learning about appropriation, I'm learning about copyright, learning about trademarks and all that other stuff. I think you know where I'm going with this, but but specifically when it comes to that type of legalities, when it comes to comics and all that other stuff, do you feel that we don't have a lot of information, especially when it comes to comics, when it comes to being a writer, protecting yourself? I think is the main aspect here.
It's tough, and I always kind of come back to the thing that happened with Bill Willingham with Fables. I think it was ABC. I don't remember which one. They were talking about doing a Fables TV show, and they realized, well, why pay Fables if we can just make Once Upon a Time, whatever that show is called, and do it themselves and just change a little bit. I have friends, obviously, that have been in a similar situation where they've created this online body of work. Someone else, perhaps, could have potentially seen it and co-opted the idea for their own property, or sometimes pretty blatantly. It is an issue. I've seen my own work in bits and pieces co-opted, and other ideas and things like that. People are like, I'll be at a convention talking about Nightmare World to someone, and they say, "Oh, that sounds just like Trick or Treat, the movie Trick or Treat." And I'm like, "Yeah, it does, doesn't it? This came out way before that." Did the Trick or Treat people ever read Nightmare World? I don't know. Are there similarities? Yeah. Brilliant minds thinking alike? Maybe. But yeah, it's tough, and you really have to make sure that you. But you can't let that stop you either. If someone's blatantly ripping you off, you obviously can take recourse, but you just got to pick your battles and decide what you want to do. I talk about legal, mainly in the Right or Wrong book, I talk about contracts and making sure that a publisher doesn't co-opt your work. I have seen situations where publishers have co-opted people's work from them. Co-opted is a very nice way of saying get the creator to sign it over to them and they don't own it anymore. I don't know how much you want to say about this. I was in some pretty involved contract negotiations with something concerning one of my properties that's not comic based. The property's comic based. The contract was not. And I went to a lawyer. I went to my lawyer. My lawyer recommended me to a different lawyer that handled this type of thing specifically. And really, really, really paid attention to make sure that come what may of this, the property remains my own, A lot of people are very anxious to get their work out there and to get their work published. And if someone just comes along and blatantly rips off your idea, you can sue them. You can take action. Of course, they can sue you back too. How much you want to fight this battle? But the flip side is when you're working with a publisher or you're working with a producer or you're working with a movie studio or what have you, you want to make sure that you're protected. And I have a chapter in Right or Wrong book called Always Use Protection, which is I'm juvenile. I'm sorry. But yes, movies. That's about getting the. And it's expensive, I was talking about this. I did the comics experience workshop, and I was talking about the fact that there are some contracts I've gotten where I've had to spend hundreds and hundreds of dollars. For example, when Len O'Grady and I hosted our comic Farseeker over at MTV. Okay, MTV Geek hosted Farseeker for a month. Cool. There was a contract we had to sign to do that. Cool. I had to take that contract to a lawyer and get it not rewritten, but revised to the point to make sure it was crystal clear, regardless of the fact that MTV Geek was hosting Farseeker, we owned it. They did not own it. They had exclusively the right, because it's ours, to host it. Now, that was sweet. I got interviewed by MTV, and I almost passed out on camera. I was so nervous. And was featured on MTV, Len and I's work. Cool, man. And I even trusted the guy that was facilitating this deal, and I trusted Guy Mac. Okay. But the guy I was working with at MTV could potentially not be there forever. In fact, he's no longer affiliated with MTV Geek at this point. MTV is this huge corporation. And someone else could come in and say a couple of years from now, or, Farseeker is up and running again, and we're just rocking it, and it turns into this big franchise. Someone at MTV could say, wait a minute, we hosted that on our site for a month back in the day. Go look at that contract, Jeeves, or Smithers. And Smithers goes and gets the contract, and, yeah, blah, blah, blah. And they could try to make a case for the fact that they're entitled to some of the money. Or they're entitled to a certain amount of the ownership of it. The point being, to get Farseeker hosted on MTV Geek, I had to spend several $100s to a lawyer to draft the contract. MTV, don't make no mistake, MTV was not trying to screw us at all. They were fine. Of course they were fine with the revisions, but they looked it over, made sure they're covered, boo, 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 done. I spent, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars just to host Farseeker on MTV Geek for a month and make that much money. Zero. But it was worth it. The exposure to the comic was worth it. The exposure to my work was worth it. And also, it was worth it to make sure that 10 years from now, MTV has no claim on that work. You just got to be careful, man, and it's a tricky thing. You got to be very careful.
And I find it interesting because especially in the art community, at least from my perspective, how I've seen it recently and how it's opened my eyes. I have always said that there are no new ideas, or I've always heard rather that phrase, there are no new ideas, and everything is recycled in some way, shape, or form. And I see this prevalently in fine artists taking comic artists' work and just making millions off of it. It's crazy, but
that's stealing. There's no well, there are no new ideas. No, you're a thief. However, as I was saying earlier, there are no two Dirk Mannings. I'm the only Dirk Manning there is. You're the only you. Anyone out there watching this, which I'm sorry you have to suffer looking at me this long, you're the only you. No one could tell the story of Nightmare World but me. Nobody. Or at least no one could create it. No one could create love stories about death but me. No one could create Right or Wrong but me. My Dia de la Muerte story, that's my story. And I talk about this a lot in the Right or Wrong book, and I stress this over and over again because so many people are afraid to put their work out there because they're afraid it's going to get stolen. Only you can tell your story. You are a valuable commodity. You have stories you want to tell. I have stories I want to tell. Everyone has stories they want to tell. Stuffed Cthulhu has stories only he wants to tell. Stuffed superhero Cthulhu. You just have to go out there and make your own work. But the flip side is you also really, and I talk about this a lot in the book as well, you really have to make sure that you're telling the stories that only you can tell. I talk about in the Right or Wrong book a lot. So many people want to go out and create or write Batman or write the X-Men or Wolverine or Phantom Stranger, whatever it is, man. Okay. But the thing is, if you got a corporately owned character like Spider-Man, like Superman, like the X-Men, like Wolverine, anybody could tell a story about those characters because the character has been created and they're an archetype. They stand for something. That's one of the things that DC really, I think, wanted to do by and large with the New 52 is get back to the archetype nature of their characters. Okay, what does Superman stand for? What does Batman stand for? It's one of the reasons I've said for a long time, Wonder Woman's such a tough character for people to write because she's the archetype that she originally represented, a woman in a man's world, is really pretty irrelevant at this point. It was kitschy back in the day. Oh, look, she's a woman with power. Hey, old school fans from back in the day that think that's pretty awesome that a woman is strong. But it's why that character doesn't translate well. Even the David Kelly thing or the TV show, with Adrian Palicki in it, the pilot, the whole idea of, look, she's a successful businesswoman and she's a superhero and she's got powers. No, really. Big deal. That offends me on such a gut level that's the take. She's a successful businesswoman and she fights crime too. Yeah, this is Dirk Manning that thinks women are whores too, by the way. Yeah, whatever. The people in the know what I'm talking about. You're happy or not knowing you don't know about Manning Gate. Point being, I tell people in the book, if you really want to write Batman, I encourage people in Right or Wrong, what is it about Batman that you like? Find that and tell your own story with your own characters about that. I'm not saying co-opt Batman. Don't make a Batman. No. What is it about the themes about Batman? Is it the fact that he turned tragedy into triumph? Is it the fact that he, is singularly obsessed with this idea of meeting this unattainable goal? Batman wants to eliminate crime in Gotham City. Never going to happen. Okay. that impossible task, that dedication to something that's impossible. Is that what really attracts you to the character? And it doesn't have to be about a guy in a cape necessarily, but find the theme, man. That's what's most important. And if you write about things that tell your worldview and tell your express your views, tell a story only you can tell, it's going to be more difficult for people to steal your work, or if they do, it's going to be more easy to sue them later.
Now, is this your first signing for the new book, or is this just a local?
This is actually my first hometown signing. I'm going back to Toledo, Ohio, to do signing. The book premiered last year at Detroit Fanfare. Actually, what we debuted at Detroit Fanfare last year was a proof copy of the book, because I was still tinkering with it. So people that bought the book at Detroit Fanfare back in the day have the proof copy, meaning it has a couple mistakes in it. I'm sorry. If anyone ever wants to switch it for the final one, I'll do that. But this is my first hometown signing. The book hasn't been at too many conventions, though, truthfully. I think I did Detroit Fanfare with the book, and that's really about it. I'm really getting into the swing of things now. I'm doing this signing at Sean's Anime and Comics in Sylvania, Ohio, which is just outside of Toledo. When we're done, I'm on the road, leaving on a jet plane, the Manning mobile. Then I'm doing Return of King Khan up in Michigan the following weekend. 2 weeks later, I'm doing Dan Con. I'll be doing then C2E2. I'll be doing Motor City Comic Con, a couple other shows scattered in there. But this is really starting the circuit with Right or Wrong. So there's my awesome shirt again. Cthulhu's are greater than people out there. But this is going to be really the first time I'm going around the circuit with the Right or Wrong book, so I'm pretty excited about that. I really think that it's always nerve-wracking, and especially to go back home, the place where I grew up, the place where I know the most people. It's like my worst fear is always I get to the signing and I'm sitting there and it's like, I'm big in Chicago. I'm big in Detroit. I'm big in Fort Wayne. Then go back home and like
get the crickets
and whatever they call those things, tumbleweeds go roll by.
I've always been curious about this because I'm in Windsor. I'm across the river from Detroit and Michigan and all that other stuff. I hear about the convention.
Wave at you from across the river.
Yeah, or as we say, if we had a good quarterback, we could throw a stone and hit Detroit. But but when it comes to the Michigan conventions, though, I've never personally experienced that. A lot of people consider Michigan to be one of those downtrodden areas, which it technically is in a sense. But convention-wise, how is it, being on the other side of the table?
Detroit Fanfare has always been a really good show for me. Really good show. The first year was just hand over fist. The second year, there were a lot of hiccups that really weren't a fault of the convention. Just a storm of bad things happening. And then last year was going right in the back in the right direction again. The Midwest has a lot of good shows. I mean, one of the things that people talk about, the Emerald City Comic Cons, it's going on this weekend in New York, and C2E2, San Diego Comic Con, obviously. Those are huge shows. I did my first San Diego Comic Con this past summer. They're amazing, awesome shows. But for my money and where I'm at, I prefer, I kind of stay Midwest based. The Michigan shows are really good, man. I really enjoy the Michigan shows. Detroit Fanfare is an awesome show. I'll do that show every year as long as they'll have me. I'm going to be doing the Motor City Comic Con for the first time this year. That's the show I used to go to in Novi. When I was young, when I was like a teenager and living in Toledo, I would go to to Motor City, for a day and meet like Jim O'Barr and all these guys. The Michigan shows are cool. The smaller regional shows are really good. C2E2 is a great show. You don't need to just do New York and San Diego, because you hear different stories. You hear people that go to like San Diego or New York and just make a ton of money, and you hear people that go there and lose their ass. When I do the next Right or Wrong book, I'm going to be talking a lot about the convention experience and what do you do? Do you save up? The reason I've never been to San Diego, for example, was because I couldn't justify the expense. That's an expensive show. I mean, God, that's an expensive show. But Jim Valentino was gracious enough to take me out. I worked the table with him. I had a great time. I cleared the table. We packed up. By the time that show was done, out of everything that Shadowline brought, we fit what we had left in, I think, 1 or 2 tiny little boxes. That's it. I hustle, man. There was a ton of people there. But if I were to go out there by myself, selling Nightmare World, selling Right or Wrong, and anything else I could scrape together, I'm not going to make up the amount of money to do San Diego. I mean, to me, that's like my vacation. If I had vacations, I can afford vacations. I prefer to do Michigan shows, Ohio, Indiana, Indianapolis. I need to start getting back out more towards Pennsylvania and stuff again. Stuff like that, man. Those are shows that, if you can drive them or fly them to them cheap and have a friend out there or find some, seedy little motel to go crash out in, bunk up with, someone else going, you can at least break even and maybe make money. So I like the Michigan shows. Yeah, you need to get down to the Michigan shows.
I know. I've seriously been lacking, especially with being a student and all that stuff, where money is a lot more restricted.
Right. Hey, I understand, So I'm not sitting here eating caviar and things like that when I'm talking to you either. But yeah, the Michigan shows are good. Detroit Fanfare is a fantastic show. Just great show. I'm very excited about doing Motor City for the first time. But yeah, you need to get up to Detroit Fanfare next year.
Definitely. Yeah, no, I want to bring the camera. I want to get more interviews. I mean, I got to focus a little more locally here. And, there's great people like yourself, like everyone else there. And I know I'm going to run into some people that I've talked with over the past on the internet and all that stuff.
Oh, sure. And it's like we were kind of talking, before the camera started rolling. It's important that, when you're getting started creating comics, build yourself locally. I kind of did backwards, I didn't start doing signings where I was from originally for years because, like I said, I was afraid, what if I come home and I do a signing in Toledo and no one's there? No, I'm going to feel like such an a-hole, And when I did my first Toledo signing 3 years ago, maybe it was 3 years ago, it was amazing. I mean, it was just like one of the coolest experiences of my life. Like my family came out, my friends and stuff. People I hadn't seen in years came out. What I would really recommend to people is start locally. Build yourself up, start locally and start going out and hit the same places over and over again. Every year for Free Comic Book Day, I've been going for years now to Pack Rat Comics in Hilliard. People know me there. People go to Free Comic Book Day. They know they'll see me. Every year I have a new product to sell, and usually people buy the book, and I get to see people and hang out, and I make some money. I do okay. I've got people I can stay with down there. We're good to go. Going to Detroit Fanfare every year. People know me. People know, if I'm going to Detroit Fanfare, I can see Dirk Manning. Going to C2E2, people know that Dirk Manning will be there. And you build that up, and then after a while, doing horror conventions as well, because I'm spooky. Oftentimes the first year you do a show, you're not going to make money because people go to that show knowing there's certain people that are going to be there, and when they couldn't afford last year, they're going to buy this year. But if they see you there this year and they think your stuff looks cool, on the radar, but they've spent their money. Next year they come back, oh, I wanted to check that out. And then they get it. And then you build it up. And every year you have stuff. If you put out quality product, or Nightmare World or whatever, the Mortis, then you can start to really make it commercially viable for yourself and financially viable to go out and go on these circuits and be a weekend warrior. And and make it financially viable for yourself. So, yeah, get thyself to Michigan.
I will. I'll definitely do that. That's on the docket for probably next year for sure.
Go to Detroit Fan Fair, for example, or Motor City, wherever you go. You can always stash your stuff at my table. Open invitation.
Sounds like a plan. I'll definitely do that. Maybe I'll even bring some webcomics cookbooks there for you too. So.
Yes.
Well, I know you got to get going soon, as always, and I'm going to throttle this bird, or at least cook him for an hour on 250. But
it's like anybody. Once you get on the phone, that's when they want to talk to you.
Yeah.
Once we're done talking, that bird will just be quiet.
Yeah. But anyhow, with everything that's been going on here, is there anything else that I haven't brought up that you'd love to let your fans know? Let those that watch this show, listen to this podcast on iTunes. Anything else you want to share with us today?
The big thing we've been talking about is right or wrong. If you're a writer that wants to create comics, spend $16 on yourself. Get the book. I did this column online for free for years. I'm not trying to bilk anybody out of money. Rather, this is a book that'll help you. This is a book that'll tell you where to find artists, how to successfully manage your team, and how to get out there and eventually publish your own books, which is the name of the game. You're not going to start writing for Marvel or DC. They want to see you create your own comics, and if they're good, they'll pick you up. You look at the current Marvel and DC lineup right now, a lot of those guys are coming from Image and small press. There's a reason for that. They've shown they can create comics. If that's your goal, you got to learn how to create comics. If you want to learn how to create comics, Right or Wrong, WRITE. It's available exclusively on Amazon.com, or come see me at a convention, and I'll gladly hook you up. Aside from that, the Dias de la Mortis #1, if you can still get your hands on a copy of that. The story Riley and I did in there is pretty amazing. If you're a horror fan, check out my Nightmare World graphic novels. They're available on Amazon and from local comic shops. I'm going to be doing some more writing for Black Box TV. So that's going to be really exciting. And Love Stories About Death is going to be coming back through shadowlineonline.com, at least. See what I did there? And Tales of Mystery is going to be returning as well, online, at least. And just a lot of cool stuff coming out. People can follow me on Twitter. My Facebook is almost maxed out, but if you send a message that you heard me on this show, I'm much more likely to give you one of my last remaining friend spots. But yeah, follow me on Twitter. I'm putting dirkmanning.com, the finishing touches on that. And there'll be a lot of conventions coming up here pretty soon. C2E2 will be the big one. Motor City Comic Con, DanCon. I'll be around, man.
So we have some questions from obviously some wonderful fans of yours here.
Readers and friends.
Readers and friends.
Fans are what I used to keep cool in the summer.
Fair enough. One of your readers and friends here.
How come this is like less all of a sudden? It's going to be more in a minute. Weird.
Thanks for screwing with my continuity. Oh,
that part's going to get edited out of the show.
Oh, come on. Me, I'm just going to toss it in because that was hilarious. Love it. We're time traveling even faster. We have a couple of wonderful questions from your friends and readers here. Of course, one of the questions, fucking bird. One of the questions just from Crazy Y'all DeBill. He or she goes, readers are a cowardly, superstitious lot. Have you ever been tempted to put on the mantle of Let me start that again. Readers are a cowardly and superstitious lot. Have you ever been tempted to put on the mantle of the bat and teach them the ways of proper reading?
There's a lot of ways I could go with that. So the short answer is yes, and I have. And the open secret is that among the other things I do besides writing is my day job is among other things I do. I teach at a college, and I have taught reading, and I have taught how to read more fluently and read better. So yes, I have and do.
I think this person is trying to get bonus points or whatever if she happens to be in your class, or he or she.
Maybe. It's hard to tell with the devil picture, but
or trying to get your soul, whatever works. But I think Cthulhu has that already. So another question is you same person, obviously, and the next 5 will be from her. Him.
Don't get me in trouble.
Hey, I go by names is what I do. He says to you, as another question, you deal in mostly supernatural and horror genres. Is this by necessity, preference, or is there something nefarious in your closet at home?
Yes.
Moving on. God, this sounds like a total softball question, but what is your favorite color? I had to do the Monty Python reference.
Well,
yeah.
People that know me know I only wear black.
It's slimming.
That too. Well, when you have as buff and as athletic as a physique as mine, you don't want to be overly intimidating. So as a result, you have to wear black to slim down. But given that now some people will say, well, black's not really a color. So royal blue. But I prefer black, obviously.
Obviously, definitely. All right, now the question from him is, this is kind of ironic, but you rarely show your face in photos, but your Facebook is open to the public. Are you looking for that special flavor of internet stalker, or are you just really into top hats?
He says wearing a baseball hat. I do own the hat and stuff like that. I mean, obviously they're using my pictures, but the Dirk Manning picture that people associate with me more than anything is branding. I don't like pictures. I don't. I prefer to let my work speak for itself. Personally, that's a big part of it. I don't like pictures. I think you had to twist my arm 6 different ways to even get me to appear on camera for this. And even then, the camera wouldn't cooperate initially. But mainly it's branding. I've done the fame route, when I did writing in college and stuff like that, and I did opinion columns and things like that, and I did music journalism for 10 years. My face became associated with my work, and I'm definitely not saying this would happen now per se, but it would get to the point back then, if I went to a concert or I went out to eat somewhere or whatever, I wrote for so many newspapers, things like that. I mean, people would be coming up to me and you did that article about blah, 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 or, do you write for such and such? I'm like, mouthful, yeah. Oh, I got this band, or my friend's in this band, or they're in, I've got this buddy that's in a band, and they're a cover band, but they all dress up as Egyptian pharaohs. True story. And we really would maybe if you could do something to cover them. And I'm like, really? This was before social media and stuff, too. So. But this is my brand, and people don't need to see this. I mean, the fact that the camera has not just curled up into a ball and sucked itself into a black hole yet is mind-boggling to me why that hasn't happened. As the camera backs away, God, get away!
It hurt me.
It hurt. Save me. But that's really what it comes down to, and it's just funny. I mean, it just makes me laugh, you know. But yeah, my Facebook is open. People can go to a convention and see what I look like. You know, there's pictures of me and things like that. But this is more fun anyway. It's all about the fun. All about the fun.
Another question from him is, if Cthulhu actually comes into our plane of existence, do you think that he devised new double Dutch techniques with your lower intestines, or point you many drooling, exploding, self-immolating fanboy? Huh?
Many drooling fanboys once covering your work. Well, I really don't know if I can answer that question because, as my shirt shows, Cthulhu is greater than people. But more importantly, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. Sorry, I have to disqualify that question. It's not if, it's when. It's going to happen.
It's just a matter of when. Final question here from, anyhow, final question, because I'll be editing that out.
Yeah, and that
collective unconscious versus archaic remnants, Freud versus Jung, and why?
Jung.
Yeah, Jung, whatever.
You know, no. I mean, that was sorry. I was trying to be a jerk that time. No, Jung. Yeah. Collective unconscious is fascinating to me. I was never a Freud guy. I'm familiar with Freud. I think Freud's correct in a lot of ways, but I think it's the same thing when you get into stuff like Ayn Rand or Freud. I think was a victim of this. When you start drinking too much of your own Kool-Aid, you start, you know, here's a Freudian example. When you start drilling too deep, it gets to the point where you kind of lose the truth in it, and you're just driving yourself farther and farther into your own philosophy. Ayn Rand did that too. You know, I like the foundation and the premise of some of the stuff that Ayn Rand, who did The Fountainhead, Atlas Shrugged, Anthem, Virtue of Selfishness. I like a lot of the stuff she's done, but you got to be very careful that you don't go too extreme. That's not to say that Jung didn't get extreme, but Freud, the base foundation of his philosophy and you know, his school of thought. Oh, right, I'm totally agree with it. But when you get into some of the stuff Freud did, it's insane. That's not to say that Jung didn't get a little wacky either. But if choosing between the two, the lesser of two evils is definitely Jung.
All right. Well, that ends those questions, and then this is where I would insert the thanks for coming on the show bit. As it's empty.
That's bizarre. How's that happen?
That's a Freudian thing, you know.
It is. Yeah, I mean, it was like
full.
It's going to be full in a second. Want to see a Dirk Manning magic trick? Watch this. It'll have Shirley Temple juice in it in a moment. Right awesome. Now.
Love it. Well, Dirk, again, as always, a true pleasure having you on the show. I do thank you for all of the information that you give us, because it's always entertaining, always amazing, and always what exactly we want to understand about the industry as from your eyes, too. So, truly, thanks so much for this.
Oh, man, thank you. It's always a pleasure, Kurt. Thank you, and I will see you in Michigan.
Yes, soon.
Done.
That ends. You're very welcome. That ends this episode of Author Month, because this is actually episode 295. We went back in time for this episode because that's when I'll be posting it. But we are, of course, doing Cosplay Month on TGT here. We're interviewing some amazing cosplayers that have done their various circuits for various conventions. Well, we just had Fawn last week. We just have the Joker cosplayer is going to be up here, the King of Crime, as he calls himself, who will be on next week. And we're looking for a couple more too, but that's not all that's available for TGT. Of course, you can always see our work on tgtmedia.com. You can listen to our episodes on iTunes. You can, of course, download these, or rather watch these amazing interviews on YouTube, which is youtube.com/TGTmedia. And as always, you know, I'm on the Twitter, I'm on the Facebooks. Look me up, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you have. But Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Thanks for downloading. Like, comment, and subscribe. And I kill that bird.